So one of the things that I like to emphasize over and over again whenever we're talking about people on the left, and specifically economic lefties, your socialists, your communists, your progressives who won't call themselves socialists or communists, is the fact that these people do not love the poor. They hate the rich. But also attached to that statement is the fact that these people are not worried about capitalism's failures. They're worried about it succeeding, all the successes. Because in order to have their ideal world, in order to tear down our society, in order to build their utopia, which again, utopia literally means no place, and have their revolution, they need to sell you problems. They need to generate fear and hysteria in order to force you into compliance with their agenda and their system of control. This is why Anna Kasparian recently was featured in this video where she attacked Mark Cuban for, of all things, providing affordable pharmaceuticals directly to the consumer at near cost of production. Obviously, Mark Cuban is doing this in such a way that he's running a business, so there is a markup to pay for overhead and to make sure the company is profitable, but this is done in part to incentivize people to buy into this model. However, Anna don't like it. However, Anna upset. So we're going to talk about that. But before we get into Anna Kasparian giving drugs the cold shoulder, before we talk about how Anna Kasparian is heated over Mark Cuban doing this, we have a sponsorship transition. It's Stay Winter Warm. Let's catch you on the other side. Heating costs are soaring, and according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, the price of energy this winter is up dramatically. Multi-year highs is what we're talking about. If you have gas heating, you're spending 30% more to heat your house this winter, and if you have oil, it's not looking that much better for you. But luckily for you, there is a solution. Stay Winter Warm is now offering this little energy heater that is intended to heat a room in only minutes for 50% off right now at this moment. And this thing is legit. I've actually been waiting for this and texting my rep for this sample for a really long time because I put this in my girlfriend's bathroom because there actually aren't heating vents in the bathroom in her new apartment. This thing is perfect. It can save you money on your electricity bills. On top of that, it can also heat a drafty room where you have to just crank up the thermostat in order to get that room hot. Whether that be a garage, a bathroom, or that one room in every household where it appears there just is no insulation in the walls. What's up with that? It also comes with a remote, which is great for lazy people like me, and you're getting it for 50% off, and there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, and at the price that this thing costs, you can basically save that much in your heating bill in a single month, so it pays for itself. Pretty awesome all around. StayWinterWarm.com.
If you're worried about not being able to afford the pharmaceutical drugs you need to stay alive, have no fear. Businessman Mark Cuban is here to rescue you. At least that's what he would like you to believe with his latest business venture.
I mean, you have to love that absolutely smug opening from Anna Kasparian. If you're worried about pharmaceutical companies and prescription drug costs, have no fear. Billionaire Mark Cuban is here, or at least that's what he would like you to believe. Dun dun dun. It's so dramatic. It's so epic. Even though Mark Cuban is doing something that will serve and help a lot of people, especially if it's successful, because other people will break into the market and follow this business model. But okay, Anna, we're gonna spaz out. We're gonna freak out over this. Sure. Let's see your research into this topic.
So this was something that one of our members had recently asked me about, and I knew nothing about it until recently when I decided to look into it and really understand what Mark Cuban is up to here. Now, the Mark Cuban Cost Plus drug company will offer more than 100 generic drugs that will be purchased directly from the manufacturers and sold online with just a 15% markup across the board and a small pharmacist fee.
So that's the basic premise of Mark Cuban's drug company. Now, I believe that the 15% markup includes the pharmacist fee, and Anna may be inaccurate in describing that. However, I haven't affirmed that that is the case at the point where I'm shooting this video. So we'll just leave that up in the air because it doesn't really matter, because if you look at the prices on Mark Cuban's website, and if you look at the reporting about it, he is significantly lowering costs. A bunch of these drugs are selling for like $3 or $4, and the shipping, which is $5, costs more, and that includes the markup, the evil profit-seeking markup. And by comparison, even with insurance, people would be expected typically to pay for some of these drugs $50, $100 for a 30-day supply, so $9 by far and away beats that. However, Anna's smug, Anna's angry, Anna's going to tell us why this is bad, even though she has no argument at all why this is bad.
So yes, Mark Cuban has introduced his online drug company, essentially, his online pharmacy is a better way of putting it. And the whole idea behind it is, I'm gonna cut the middlemen out. We're gonna buy directly from the manufacturer, and then we're gonna sell it to you for the low price of just a 15% markup and a pharmacist fee.
Every single frame of this video is a teachable moment for progressives who are on the progressive bandwagon because they think it helps the poor, because they think that progressivism is a strive to things like affordable drugs. Mark Cuban, beyond any doubt, is providing those affordable drugs. Anna Kasparian allegedly, theoretically, hypothetically, metaphorically maybe, is in favor of affordable drugs, yet she's so smug and snarky in her delivery of this, where she's like, for 15% markup and a pharmaceutical fee. Oh my god, what a scumbag. How dare this businessman go into business and conduct his business in a way that makes money, as I'm sitting at my desk in the Young Turk studios, getting paid to tell you about how making money is horrible and evil. What a jerkbag. Oh my god, he's so terrible, so garbage, Mark Cuban. Ow, but no.
Now it sounds all good and dandy for now, okay? The Mark Cuban Cost Plus Drug Company does not process insurance claims. So if you're hoping your insurance pays for the drugs you purchase off this website, that ain't gonna happen. And it also requires its customers to pay out of pocket.
So the way that Anna just read that the insurance companies are not going to be able to buy the drugs on your behalf, you're going to have to pay out of pocket, really goes to show that Anna Kasparian doesn't understand the statement of getting the middleman out of the equation, because this is one of the reasons why Mark Cuban is able to deliver the drugs directly to the consumers at such low prices, because he doesn't have to deal with all the extra administrative costs that are associated with third-party purchasers. He doesn't have to deal with whether or not your insurance covers this specific drug at his specific pharmacy. This is how he's cutting costs. But Anna's like, if you thought your insurance was going to pay for this cut the middleman out thing, you're absolutely wrong. Mark Cuban, what a jerk bag. You're going to have to pay out of pocket. Yeah, Anna, that's what cutting the middleman out is. Not only are you cutting the middleman out in terms of the supply chain, but you're cutting the middleman out in terms of marketing directly to the consumer. That's what's going on here, Anna. It's actually really not that hard to figure out. And again, this is the sole way that you can provide these services for so cheap. One of the downsides of the government having a system like Medicare and Medicaid is that they bid up the prices of prescription drugs. One of the downsides of them requiring insurance for all these different things is that it bids up the price of prescription drugs. Because if, as consumers, the vast majority of us have no context for what we're paying for these prescription drugs because they're being paid by somebody else, there's no incentive to lower prices. Mark Cuban cuts the middleman out, and that gives the incentive to lower prices because you have to draw people in that may even have insurance, because this can't just sustain on people without insurance. That's the whole business model, yet Anna's getting all smug. That's the whole idea behind it, yet Anna's giving you snark and saying, if you hope your insurance is gonna pay for it, Mark Cuban's refusing to do that. What a dirtbag.
Now, of course, I'm not gonna take a media platform or anyone in corporate news at face value. I wanted to look into this myself. And look, this was just launched, and for now, it looks like the prices are actually a lot more affordable.
So I love that Anna just says, you know, I'm not going to take the word of any media outlet. I'm not just going to report something without any skepticism. One of the videos that I shot very recently was about the Young Turks just reading verbatim, basically, a rap article that mischaracterized something that Dave Ramsey said on his radio show, and going off on all these tangents about how Dave Ramsey was supposedly personally evicting people during the pandemic because he wanted them to die because they were poor and he was evil and greedy for profits. She just did that the other day with Cenk Uygur, but now she's like, I'm not gonna take your word for it because this thing hurts me in terms of confirmation bias, so I have to look for things to contradict it. Now, when it aligns with my confirmation bias, I'm not going to do any research at all because, you know, that aligns with my already preconceived agenda. But let's hear Anna Kasparian take down Mark Cuban selling you directly affordable generic drugs.
Remember, we're talking about 100 generic drugs, so it's very likely that some of the drugs that you or a family member might need aren't even included on the website.
Oh, got you there, Mark. You only are selling 100 generic drugs, which means that if people don't need the drugs that you're selling, they're not on the website and they're not helped by this. You total scumbag, you jerk, you loser. How dare you, Mark Cuban, do this? This is like saying that Apple doesn't sell Galaxy phones, so Apple is a terrible company because if you go in there, they'll have iPhones, obviously iPads, iMacs, but you can't get a PC or Galaxy phones because they're not there. Wow, Apple, if you're really trying to help people get into phones, why don't you sell Samsung phones? Why do you sell Apple phones? Maybe it's because you're Apple. Yeah, the fact that this has 100 prescription drugs, yeah, it doesn't help every single person ever in the world ever, but those 100 prescription drugs that are now at very affordable prices are going to help the people that take that. And I'm assuming that Mark Cuban, since he's starting a business, targeted generic drugs that have broad usage in order to reel in customers, so that way later down the line he could sell more niche drugs. I'm sorry, Anna Kasparian, I'm sorry, Princess, you can't have everything all at once from Mark Cuban, but this is not a knock against him.
But here's what we do know of some of the drugs that are on the website as of today. A common cholesterol medication that goes for $55 will be sold on Cuban's site for $4. Sounds pretty good, right?
I'm not 100% certain, but I believe that it's a generic version of Lipitor. And again, that is one of the drugs that you would pay $4 for, and the shipping costs would be $5. That's pretty good. That's pretty respectable, especially since that's a month's supply, and you're comparing that to $55 a month that you would pay normally for this generic version of the drug. Can't really beat that. $9 versus $55. Yet Anna Kasparian will say, you know, he's selling this heart medicine, but what if you need some other heart medicine that's not on the website? Does that really mean that anybody was helped that needs this medicine because they don't sell other medicine? What a jerkbag, Mark Cuban.
And why is Mark Cuban doing this? Well, Mark Cuban's an entrepreneur. What do entrepreneurs look to do? They're looking to launch businesses and make money. But he claims that's not what this is about. Cuban told Forbes last year, when he originally became involved in the creation of a low-cost drug company, that he wanted to show capitalism can be compassionate.
Well, there's two things about this statement. Number one, Mark Cuban is not being 100% honest. He is in business to make money. If he was in business to lose money, he wouldn't be in business for very long. Number two, Mark Cuban, you don't need to show that capitalism can be compassionate. Capitalism has risen the standards of living of more people in the history of the world than any other system ever crafted by man. This system of voluntary exchange, by its very nature, is raising people up. But to Mark Cuban's point, I'm thinking that theoretically he probably could have got into pharmaceuticals the standard regular business model way, and that he thinks that this is a more compassionate model. But don't get it twisted, don't get it confused. Don't get it in your head that Mark Cuban's not looking to make money. This is a new direct-to-consumer innovative business model, and it is intended to disrupt the market so that he can make profits. It's very smart, very intelligent, and it's going to put pressure on companies, other pharmacies, other people in the chain that do markups to compete with Mark Cuban. So even though he's doing this for selfish reasons, for evil, greedy reasons, for profit-seeking reasons, the results are far better than somebody trying to go out and do something altruistically, because it puts market pressure to lower the cost of prescription drugs. That is absolutely fantastic, and everybody should be on board with it. But again, Anna Kasparian, really angry, doesn't get it. She thinks we need the communist revolution, and if we don't have that, then why even care if people's lives are going to be saved and materially improved by affordable prescription drugs? Did I forget to mention that Mark Cuban, his website, doesn't have every single drug? I started Googling drugs not on Mark Cuban's website, and the list is staggering. What a jerkbag. He doesn't have all those drugs that are not on his website. Forget about the people that will be helped by the 100 drugs that are on his website currently, and the fact that obviously he plans to expand in the future, until he has absolutely everything at all times at very, very cheap prices. Oh, did I mention he has a markup and he gets rid of the markup until he's giving it away along with all his money? And Kasparian's not going to be happy.
And what I find so fascinating about that statement is how easily members of corporate media just regurgitate it verbatim. In fact, here's an example. Let's watch the video.
You know, I think a lot of people don't kind of know how it might work in other countries, that in countries like the UK, like Canada, France, the government comes in and negotiates the price, right? There's a government body that does that. That may make a capitalist like you, Mark, shudder a little bit. And I know that one of the things that you wanted to prove is that capitalism can be compassionate here. So I want you to talk to us about costplusdrugs.com.
We discussed putting together a pharmacy specifically for generic drugs where we go out and we buy them from the same manufacturers that others are buying from, but really keep our costs low and just sell it at a 15% markup.
Compassionate capitalism.
So I just want to point out, Anna Kasparian set up that clip in such a way that she was making the point that the corporate press was just repeating verbatim Mark Cuban's talking points. And then she cut to a video where the woman that was talking in the media was repeating Anna Kasparian's talking points about European-style healthcare systems and the price of drugs over there. And then Mark Cuban was counteracting that with his business model. So that was not an example of what you described, Anna. That lady had the exact same position as you because the media overall is left-wing. So what are you doing? What are you talking about? I don't know why you even played that clip. I'm sure there are other clips, probably from CNBC, where they're worshiping Mark Cuban because he's a very popular guy over there, but that wasn't one of them.
Compassionate capitalism.
Compassionate capitalism.
Compassionate capitalism.
Compassionate capitalism. The smuggery off the charts. The snark off the charts. And again, the only way that this makes sense, the only way that this is understandable, is if you understand that this isn't about helping the poor, this isn't about affordable drugs, this is about control. This is about hating capitalism and hating the rich. That's the motivation behind it. Otherwise, you wouldn't have Anna just so upset about Mark Cuban doing this. So angry that this is going to delay the revolution that she's dreaming of. I mean, if people understand how capitalism works, then what even would they even side with Anna Kasparian is? How are they going to let people like Anna Kasparian use their physical force, government thugs, to tell them what to do and how to run their lives? How can you possibly go buy your own drugs online when Anna Kasparian wants to run your life for you better than you?
Now, when one of our viewers asked me to share my thoughts on this story, before I had actually read into it or really understood what it was about, the question was, what do you think? Is this a good thing or is this a scam? And what I want you guys to understand about capitalism is the system and what the incentives and disincentives are, how the system works, right? So compassionate capitalism doesn't really make sense because capitalism isn't about compassion. It's not about morality. The system is about maximizing profits.
Oh, it's about morality. The system is about maximizing profits. Yes, Anna, capitalism is about profiting. It's about succeeding in business. It's about innovation. It's about producing something of value for the consumer, which is why capitalism is fundamentally the most moral system humanly possible. You see, the genius behind the capitalist system is you take people's selfish desires, their desire for self-improvement, and you require them in order to advance themselves to serve their fellow man. That's what making a profit is. Again, you don't buy something unless the thing that you're buying at the time that you bought it, you believe is more valuable than the money you're giving up. You don't sell something to somebody unless you want the money that they're paying for it more than you want the product. This is how capitalism, a system of voluntary exchange based on private property rights, can and is mutually beneficial and therefore is the most moral system that you could craft. So you're 100% wrong. And Mark Cuban's thing with the compassionate capitalism and all that marketing, that's whatever. The point is, even if Mark Cuban's acting selfish in this business model, people are being helped. And for that matter, there is nothing more selfish than seeing somebody going out there, doing it, taking the risk for their own business and thinking, I, who am not invested in this, I, who have no part in this, I, who won't put my own money on the line, should have a hand in controlling what's going on here. I should have outsized influence on these voluntary transactions. I need to intercede myself in there because I know what's better for Mark Cuban and for the customers that he's serving than either of those people. It's absolutely disgusting what Anna and all these lefties are advocating for, and we don't emphasize enough how disruptive and disgusting it actually is.
And as we know, the executives, the business owners have a what?
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 Have a
Have a what?
Have a what?
Have a what?
Have a what?
Have a
What?
Have a what? Anna, why are you talking like that? I don't understand why you're saying words in that manner. You're ridiculous. Cut it out.
Have a what? A fiduciary responsibility to return on the investor's investment into the company, to provide a return on that investment.
So I just want to point out that Anna Kasparian is talking about the fiduciary responsibility that publicly traded corporations have to the shareholders of those publicly traded corporations to maximize profits, because when people buy into a company, they don't buy into it to lose money. And if you have executives that are not acting in the best interest of the owners of those companies, which, by the way, are large investors, their teachers' pensions, and all these different things, your pension is invested in a bunch of these publicly traded companies if you have one, is to not screw over those people and actually maximize profits. The reason why this is not applicable to what Mark Cuban's doing is Mark Cuban's company is a private company. But Anna is going to point that out, not acknowledging that she has no idea what she's talking about when she does point it out, and then make another ridiculous point. So we got to roll into that.
And so the question is, all right, cool, he launched this. Is this some sort of nonprofit? Obviously not. He's referring to it as compassionate capitalism, which means that there are funders, right? And by the way, no outlet that reported on this touched on what I'm about to talk about at all. Not even for a second. Everyone's like, oh, Mark Cuban, he's such a good guy. He's able to do what Congress can't do. And by the way, Congress, I'm not giving them any brownie points. They don't get any cookies. Congress hasn't done anything in regard to making pharmaceutical drugs affordable for Americans.
Well, actually, that's not true, Anna. Congress has done the exact opposite of making drugs affordable for the American public. Did you know that when the FDA started regulating prescription drugs, the American drug prices were the cheapest in the entire world? We had the best drugs at the cheapest rates. And after the first round of regulations, that was still the case. You see, the first FDA mandate when it came to prescription drugs, and Kirk Wilcox did a long video about this that I highly recommend, was about making sure that drugs don't kill you. And these regulations, by the way, didn't actually jack up the prices of prescription drugs, which is pretty good because it's nice to know that drugs not killing us isn't something that will make drugs so unaffordable that we might actually die. But the next thing was the big issue, because the FDA's original mandate was to make sure that drugs were safe. But then the next part of the FDA's mandate in terms of their regulation of prescription drugs was their drive to make sure that prescription drugs before they reached the market were not only safe, but effective. And this might sound like common sense to you. This might sound like it's perfectly fine. But think about it. Now, drug companies have to spend billions of dollars, at least $1 billion, but sometimes much, much more, on clinical trials in order to get a drug to market. And by the way, the FDA's stamp of approval on either the safeness or the effectiveness is not a guarantee anyway. But for the most part, after they've proven that the drug is safe, it's better to just put it out on the open market so that way people can take it and we can get more data on what is and isn't effective. Drugs will become cheaper. People will have more options. This is the way of the United States pre this part of the mandate, and people weren't dying en masse because the drugs that they were getting weren't working. It turns out that pharmaceutical companies want to provide treatments for you that are effective because they want you as a repeat customer. So having the government give their stamp of approval, some bureaucrat, some paper pusher, rubber stamp it as effective, isn't really needed, nor is it necessary, and it dramatically increases the cost of prescription drugs in the United States. And all the solutions of the government just doing price controls after the fact aren't a solution, because what will end up happening is the overall amount of money that is put into research and development, if you don't correct the effectiveness portion of the regulations, will just dry up, and we'll have less prescription drugs, less medicine on the market.
They're so beholden to the private pharmaceutical companies. They take the legalized bribes and then they do the pharmaceutical companies' bidding. We know that.
So Anna's talking about how all the Congress and the drug companies, blah, blah, blah. She's already been on that spiel before, but she's going to transition that to Mark Cuban, who again is not operating as a pharmaceutical company, who is not operating as an insurance provider. He's operating as a pharmacist that is selling generic drugs that are off patent. So none of those incentives that Anna's talking about, even the fiduciary incentive, because it's a private company, are applicable to what we're talking about.
However, Mark Cuban, not the solution. Why? Because there's a profit motive always when it comes to capitalism. For now, the prices look great. The prices look cheap. It looks like it's affordable. But let's not forget about the fact that, let's go to this next graphic, Mark Cuban Cost Plus Drug Company actually does take some money. Now, Mark Cuban Cost Plus Drug Company has not announced any IPO plans as of now, making it a private company. Hence, retail investors will not be able to buy stock yet and may have to wait for the company to go public. So that's not even out of the question yet. So it's a private company, but that doesn't mean that there aren't investors. It's actually backed by venture capitalists.
So there, Anna just talked about how this is backed by venture capitalists, and she's like, oh, it's a bad thing that they're investors. Again, the Young Turks have investors, very famously $20 million from Jeffrey Katzenberg's media group, a venture capitalist group. They've also taken money from Buddy Roemer, a venture capitalist. But again, we're talking about Mark Cuban and affordable prescription drugs. So this is far more sinister than the money that the Young Turks have taken from venture capitalists, because venture capitalists are evil unless they're giving money to people like the Young Turks, then they're good. But Mark Cuban, for affordable drugs, forget about it. That's evil. That's ridiculous. They're looking for profit. Also, again, Anna, just a fundamental misunderstanding of what we're talking about. She's like, the drugs are affordable for now. The drugs are affordable for now. But what happens if this goes public and you get that fiduciary responsibility that I talked about earlier that is not applicable because it's not public, without acknowledging the contradiction in what I just said? Well, Anna, when this company goes public, if it goes public, it will still likely not raise the prices of prescription drugs, because what makes this company different is the fact that they're marketing directly to the consumer. Anna seems fundamentally incapable of acknowledging that you don't have to charge high prices to make profits. And in fact, a lot of times high profits are not indicative of high prices. Moving a lot of volume at a low margin also can make you a ton of money. This is the business model of Walmart, Amazon. All these major retailers sell you a bunch of stuff for low margins in order to reel you in. They don't charge you exorbitant prices. So everything Anna is saying about this is fundamentally wrong. And her little smear of the company getting venture capitalist money, yeah, Mark Cuban found other people that voluntarily wanted to pitch into this company, and he got them on board. Anna, you're in favor of government thuggery, hiring people with weapons to go force people into compliance with your will because you don't believe that man can serve another man in a voluntary system. You don't believe in capitalism. You don't believe in private property rights. And again, you hate capitalism more than you want affordable drugs, and you hate the rich more than you care about the poor.
So let's take a look at the next graphic, which will give you an overview of the company. It says that it was founded in 2016. I'll tell you why in just a second. It actually had a different name with the same scheme behind it. But as you can see, the latest deal amount, $1.3 million, it has 3 investors. So there are 3 individuals who have invested a considerable amount of money to launch this business. At the end of the day, it is a business.
So Anna shows us this graphic to tell us that this company is a business, and it has, and I know you might want to sit down before I say this, investors. But you can see right here that there's $1.3 million in reported investment into this company, which, by the way, if you can provide 100 prescription drugs generically at a profit with only $1.3 million in seed capital, this is unbelievably doable. And a lot of different people can replicate this business model and become successful, broaden it out, and more people can buy drugs directly in this way and actually be able to afford their medicine. But whatever, We're talking about the $1.3 million from 3 investors, and here's a way that you could think of that $1.3 million as basically a third of what Buddy Roemer gave to the Young Turks when he invested in the company, and about a 20th of what Jeffrey Katzenberg put into the Young Turks when he invested into the company. Since we're talking about how businesses and venture capital, even in private companies, are bad, evil, and definitely not to ever be taken on likely by anybody because that's evil and wrong and immoral, as Anna Kasparian takes money from a business person who is a venture capitalist who invested in the company that she works at. But yeah, I'm sure it's no big deal.
Now, did those 3 investors provide the seed money for this out of the kindness of their own hearts, or are they expecting a return on their investment? And in order to get a return on that investment, what do you need to do as a business owner? Cut costs, maximize profits.
Anna's childlike analysis of capitalism really explains why she's become more and more left-leaning over the years. You cut costs, Anna, so that you can maximize profits. And yes, they are trying to cut costs. The cost of distributing prescription drugs to the consumer. That's the whole business model. You're saying it like it's evil and sinister and bad, but that's the whole point. And they're apparently launching this company with just 5 employees, which really shows their commitment to cutting costs. This is not that shocking. This is not horrifying. This is not evil. This makes all the sense in the world. But just Anna saying cut costs, maximize profits, it's no, cut costs to maximize profits. You're cutting costs for that function. One is a cause, the other is an effect. They're not 2 separate steps, you buffoon.
So for now, they have 5 employees, according to this overview. They claim that they're going to continue to keep their costs low. But if you're planning to be the solution to a broken system that puts profits over people, how is this one small company with 5 employees going to provide the pharmaceutical drugs necessary to keep Americans alive? You're going to have to hire more people. Labor ends up becoming the most expensive part of running the business. That cuts into profits. Are they gonna go public? It seems like it's something that's being considered. It's not about whether Mark Cuban is a good guy or bad guy. It's about how the system is supposed to work. That's what capitalism is. They need to return on that investment. That seed money wasn't provided out of the goodness of their own hearts. If it was, this wouldn't be a company. This wouldn't be identified as a capitalistic venture. You guys get what I'm saying?
Again, it's like I'm talking to a child, but I realize that I'm talking to a leftist, so that's worse than talking to a child, because a child can actually enter in new information and learn and develop into a productive person. Yes, Anna, if they start serving more consumers, they may need to hire more people. That's totally fine to hire more people on when the profits or the demand for your product warrants that. So the idea that hiring people is going to lead to all these increased costs for the company and that's basically going to bankrupt them and then drugs are going to be through the roof is ridiculous. In fact, the whole genesis of this segment is ridiculous because Anna Kasparian's basically arguing that Mark Cuban's business model, which is meant to disrupt the standard business model of pharmaceutical companies, at some point, or pharmaceutical distributors like your CVS, your Walgreens and all that, at some point could be the standard business model that everybody else is doing. But if it was that, then you have all these other companies that are far more experienced in doing what everybody else is doing, and Mark Cuban is not going to compete with them on $1.3 million. The only way this works is through an innovative business model, and Anna just can't wrap that around her head. So she's saying, what if it goes public? What if they try to maximize profits? Wow, scumbaggery right there. The whole point is to prove that this business model could be profitable, draw in more investors, and run this business as is. The whole point is not to convert it to the other business model because then you're offering nothing distinct. Especially if you're appealing to people without insurance, especially if you're appealing to people with insurance and you're trying to convince them to pay out of pocket. You have to offer those prices lower than the copay in order to be successful.
So just think about all those Silicon Valley companies, all of those app-based companies that came out with all these great products like, oh, Uber's so great, Lyft is so great. I'm able to use an app and all of a sudden there's a car that shows up at my front door and takes me from point A to point B at a very, very low cost. What happened with that? They wanted to monopolize the market, and as soon as they got close to it, the investors stopped subsidizing the ride sharing app. They stopped partly paying for each ride that you take with either Uber or Lyft or whatever other app-based program you're using.
Anna, first of all, that never happened. Uber, Lyft, all these ride sharing companies are still not profitable. They're still subsidizing the rides based on the investment capital. Even though prices have gone up over the years, that is still the case. So you're definitely 100% wrong. Second, you kept talking about how there's a 15% markup, how Mark Cuban's trying to be profitable right off the bat with this prescription drug company. So that is not a factor in what we're talking about. They're not subsidizing the drugs to the people. They're directly buying them, and for a small markup, they're selling them already at a profit to the people. So again, Amazon, all these other companies that went with low or no profits to start out with is not the business model that you're talking about. You would understand that if you had a greater understanding than a leftist could possibly have related to economics and business. If you talk to an 8-year-old, Anna, they might be able to upgrade your knowledge in this.
So my point is, it might start off as something that looks shiny and new and exciting, but pay attention to the system that's propping it up. Because all you need to really look at is what that system forces the executives at that company to do: maximize profits, because they literally have a fiduciary responsibility to do so. So who knows, they might prove me wrong. Compassionate capitalism is not something that I'll ever buy into, because again, it's not about compassion, it's about how the system works.
Look, I hope this video serves as an important lesson to all of you, and especially those of you who are progressives, who are seeking the effects and don't really care about where the solutions come from. You're not ideologically motivated. You're actually motivated by legitimate compassion. That these are the people on your side. These are how people on your side react to innovative solutions that are, by their very nature, going to help people. And if it doesn't help people and it doesn't become profitable, the company will go away and we're just left with the status quo. But I'm hoping it does. I'm hoping other people get into the market. I'm hoping drugs become more affordable by cutting the middlemen out, cutting the third-party payers out, which is something that capitalists have argued needs to be done in order to reduce the cost of medicine in this nation. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like the video, show me by leaving a like. You can subscribe for more content. Follow me on all my social medias. You can support me via the support links. This has been me talking about Anna Kasparian hating affordable drugs. Till next time.